I'd say, yeah, majority of autographs we do are for younger kids.
Mm-hmm.
But when you do get those middle-aged or similar-aged people who want autographs too, you're not more stoked about it, but you kind of, when you
Right.
do see those people kind of submit to that or come out of their comfort, and be like, wow, this is amazing. You guys are that's kind of a little more rewarding.
Mm-hmm.
But the kids are definitely where it's kind of why we do it, because I always try and tell the kids too. Like, I usually ask them if they ride,
Mm-hmm.
and if they ever wanted to do freestyle, that to chase their dream or things like that. Because as I mentioned earlier, I kind of struggled with my own belief in it,
Mm-hmm.
like thinking that these people were some sort of special human, when really now that's what I'm doing. So I
Yeah.
try and kind of reinsure that mindset that it's like, hey, if you think this is cool, like, you can do it too.
Yeah.
Even I actually spoke to a kid this weekend at the bike show, and he was 19, and he was like, wow, freestyle is so cool. He's like, but I'm just a bush rider. He said, I just grew up racing in the bush. And I was like, I hear you, man. That's all I did too. I was like, I'm 30 now, and now
Mm-hmm.
I'm just kind of started learning freestyle at like from 27 to 30 years old. So I
Mm-hmm.
was like, don't discount it. That if you think it's cool, try it out and see if you like it as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
what is there any experiences that you would love to share with the viewers? Like something that really resonated, made you kind of teary, but any interactions with fans that it was really memorable?
Um, I would say my first show maybe,
Mm-hmm.
except it was mostly just having family there. Like,
Mm.
I had a very large, pretty much everybody in my family, from grandma to my uncle to my dad,
Mhm.
stepdad, mom, everybody
Yeah.
showed up at some point over the weekend, and then lots of friends as well, and my brother. So
Yeah.
I'd say those have been the most intimate fan interactions, if you want to call them,
Mhm.
when you're signing autographs for kids and stuff, and then the next person in line is your uncle or your grandma or your
Wow.
mother-in-law. Yeah,
Yeah, that is awesome.
I'd
I
say,
love it.
yeah,
I love it.
yeah,
So Brady, you mentioned earlier that in order to get into these shows that you have to come up with 10 tricks. And obviously one of
yeah,
them is a backflip. And I'm just really curious because I did watch the video on Instagram where you did do your first backflip. Yeah,
yeah.
share with our viewers what that felt like, what that was like for you.
Well, the first flip for sure is probably the biggest mental battle I've ever had,
Mhm.
and I would say that's what taught me how to manifest and visualize things. Because before that, it was more just a learning process.
Mhm.
But when it came to the learning my first flip, it almost haunts you to a point where you think about it so much that you begin to visualize it.
Mm.
And the first time I did one was in October 2022 on a super kicker, we call it. So it's a steeper ramp. It's kind of better for learning. It's easier to flip. It's a little bit harder to time it,
Mhm.
but it's usually kind of where you start. And I was out at Camp H, which is near Oliver, BC, with Cody Matichak, and I knew all the right things were in place to learn it. But that day, I was just kind of coming back from a back injury, so I was already having a bit of a mental battle, even just jumping my regular distance.
Mhm.
So when I went to bed that night, I remember it was on my brain when I went to sleep. I remember dreaming about it. And then when I woke up that morning, it was the first thing I thought about. It almost
Mm.
consumed me.
Mhm.
So when I was actually able to put myself in that mindset on the bike, and it happened. And then, so fast forward a year to October of 2023, it was obviously a goal to flip 75 feet, which is just a regular comp ramp, we call it, because super kickers aren't usually what we ride at shows. They're kind of a one-off thing.
Mhm.
So unless you can flip a regular ramp at 75 feet, you're not really ready to do it at a show per se.
Mm. Okay.
So very similar kind of situation. I rode at Billy Cohut's, and a week before I did the flip, and it was kind of consuming me. I was like looking at the ramp and really thinking about it, but something that day I didn't do it that day.
Mm-hmm.
But with the good weather we had this year, I knew we were coming back to ride as soon as possible. So between that week of time, it was the same thing. I thought about it every day,
Mm-hmm.
dreamt about it. The day I went to go do it, I had my brother-in-law with me, and he's an ex-pro snowboarder,
Mm-hmm.
so he kind of understands the mindset and things. And I told him, I was like, I really want to flip today, but I told him, I was like, don't tell anybody because I don't want the pressure, but I really want to do it today. And he tells me afterwards, the first thing he did when he got there was he went and told Cody that I really wanted to flip that day,
Mm-hmm.
but not to put the pressure on me. He said he was trying to create that vibe and the positive vibes to make it happen.
Mm-hmm.
And sure enough, same thing. It was just everything happened right that day. I felt really good on the bike. Everybody was gearing down and they were kind of done riding for the day. We rode for quite a few hours. And I was just like something determined in me, put my helmet back on, and I went and rode by myself. And then all the guys kind of started gathering, and they're like, they knew what I was thinking about. And yeah, to cross that line, to actually try a flip
Mm-hmm.
was probably the hardest mental battle I've ever had for sure. It was because you can look at the ramp and think about it and jump it as many times as you want, but with a backflip, there's obviously no half doing it. It's either fully committing or not. So when you finally commit to doing it,
Mm-hmm.
because it's just like hitting a ramp for the first time. You're 100% committed before you even hit that ramp. You've already accepted the outcome. No matter what's about to happen in 30 seconds, it's already happened in your head. So
Mm.
once you cross that line, it was a very powerful feeling of, okay, here we go. Like, I almost don't believe I'm about to do this, but I'm about to do it. And
Wow.
thankfully for myself, it went well, and my first flip came around. And
Mm-hmm.
as you saw by the Instagram video, it was a
Mm-hmm.
very exciting moment, and everybody there was very stoked as well. It couldn't have been any better. I had all the right people there,
Yeah.
and yeah, it went off perfectly.
Yeah, that video was phenomenal. I just got full body chills, you know what I mean? Because I could
Yeah,
feel the excitement like from
yeah,
you and from everybody that was there. It was a moment you could tell. Yeah.
for sure it was.
Yeah, and I really like the part that you said about the manifestation, how you just become consumed and you can visualize it over and over and over. Because I'm not too sure if you're aware, but professional athletes, even like Olympic medalists, they actually do practice visualization or mental rehearsal.
Yeah,
And people that practice mental rehearsal, that really put themselves there, and you can actually get the emotions, like, you evoke all of the emotions as well. They actually they did that study with a bunch of basketball players where they
hmm,
imagined making the shot, just visualizing it, and then they took another group and
yeah.
they did a practice, physical practice, and the ones that did the mental rehearsal actually did better.
Wow, I believe it
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah, and they do that, and they've
Yeah,
done that study with piano players, where 5 weeks of just visualizing playing these certain notes. Within 5 weeks, they actually had played the whole song. It's amazing. So when you said
for sure,
visualization of doing this backflip, that really resonates.
for
Yeah.
sure. It the backflip almost made me learn that because without
Mhm.
it, I think you're a little bit lost if you're not
Yeah. So
visualizing
you
it.
actually
You
were,
have to picture yourself.
yeah. So you weren't aware of like the scientific the explanation of mental rehearsal before the backflip taught
I
you
wouldn't
that.
say, yeah, I wouldn't say so much. Like it maybe is something I did kind of subconsciously, but that made me very
Mm.
aware of it, and
Yeah,
definitely took it to the next level because it I visualized it and I just visioned myself coming out on the other side okay, and then
yeah,
that's what happened. So
yeah,
it kind of reinforced that belief
yeah.
for sure.
Because, you know, like
Um,
my heart actually started to speed up a little bit when you talked about hitting the ramp and you've already accepted the outcome. Like there is no stopping.
yeah,
You're not going to get to the top of the ramp and just stop when you're like, how fast are you going when you hit the ramp?
I think about 40. I would say 40 kilometers an hour. I don't know exactly, I guess,
Yeah.
but it's second gear on our bikes.
Second gear.
Second gear, pretty much everything it has in second gear.
Yeah. Well, that's a lot.
And
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. And like you said, you're committed, right? There is no turning back. So that in itself is, to me, is terrifying. So
yeah, no, for sure.
yeah. So good.
One more thing I can say
Mhm,
about flipping
mhm,
is I've had 3 days of doing it. My very first day, and I think I did 4 that day, and
mhm,
then the next time I did it was with my friend Alex, and I think I did 10 to 12 that day. And going into that day, I had the very same thing. It was I rode the day before without flipping, and then the next day I knew I was like, I have to flip today. So
mhm,
I went to bed that night, thought about it, probably dreamt about it.
mhm,
First thing I thought about. So when it happened, I was really ready for it. And then kind of on the opposite side of things, the last time I flipped was in November, early November.
mhm,
Actually, no, I think it was actually early December.
mhm,
We had such nice weather and no snow. And I didn't know I was going to ride that day. So I hadn't visualized and thought about it. And I do remember having a terrible sleep that night for some reason.
mhm.
And I went to Billy's house and I did 3 flips that day, and they were my worst flips I had ever done.
Mm,
And so right there again kind of reinforced that wow, I wasn't ready for today. Sure, I pulled it off, but they were the worst flips I had done. I had no air awareness. Like as soon as I left the ramp, I was kind of blind. Like you might as well have just closed your eyes and prayed kind of
mm.
thing. Whereas even my very first one, as soon as I left the ramp, I knew I was spinning, so I didn't really panic. I was like, "This is going well." But that very last day, I wasn't. I just wasn't there mentally, and all 3 of my flips were panic mode, panic rev, basically just like, "Oh, here we go. I hope I make this." And thankfully, they all did go okay. They were. I still consider them my worst flips as for form and because if you're in panic mode, you're not really in the right form and you're not calm and loose.
Yeah.
So they were by far the worst flips I've done. But it was also just another good reinforcement of I wasn't mentally ready that day. So when spring comes around and I know I have to get back on that bike again and do it again, I'm gonna make sure I'm ready. I'm not just gonna
Yeah.
if the day doesn't feel right, I'm not gonna force myself to do it. I'm gonna make sure I'm ready for it.
Yeah, that's a really good perspective. I absolutely love that you just shared that, Brady, because that was actually going to be one of my questions, and I kind of forgot was like, have you ever had that moment in midair where there was panic? And you said that beautifully. Wow, scary.
Yeah.
Yeah, scary though. So, talking about manifestation, what trick are we manifesting now for the future?
Well, the flip has always been one of my favorite tricks
Mhm,
because it looks so simple and the rider really isn't doing much and it's almost more of like a show off kind of like look at what I can do even though it looks effortless compared
mhm,
to lots of other tricks. So I would say the only one that ups it for me, I don't have like big aspirations to learn big upside down tricks, flip tricks we call them.
mhm,
But I would say the one that I would want to do is a no-handed flip because it's just kind of
mhm,
tops on to that little bit of a show off. Like I'm doing a backflip and I can do no hands
mhm,
and then
mhm,
kind of back around. So I would say that's probably the
mhm.
biggest one on my hit list to manifest.
Yeah,
Be a
amazing.
no-handed flip.
Yeah, and we're not gonna see any flips in the future that has got your last name all over it, because I do believe riders make their own stuff too, don't they?
Yeah. What do you mean? Sorry.
Is there gonna be any tricks that are gonna have your last name attached to it? Because
Oh, I see. No, I don't think so.
Mhm,
My goals are a lot more personal than trying to be,
mhm.
a staple in the sport. Really,
Yeah.
it's I've already exceeded what I've thought I could do and wanted to do. So
Mm,
as much as I don't want to undersell myself and maybe like I have in the past, and I need to have a little more belief there.
yeah.
No, there to put a name on a trick nowadays is you have to be pretty wild
Mhm.
and be doing something pretty new. So
Yeah.
I would say I'd like to be maybe a little more known for doing things out of the norm a little bit.
Mhm.
Like I'd really like to do different things with social content and stuff this summer, and
Mhm.
kind of urban stuff is kind of getting a little more popular. Like guys that ride their bike in the street a little bit and do some like stunts that maybe have not only a little bit of risk factor but a little bit of a law factor to it as well.
Well,
So
you're in
kind
the
of like
right
to
place, Brady.
explore that a
Yeah,
little.
you're in the right place
Yeah,
because my podcast is Trouble to Transformation. And even though, and
yeah,
it's funny because I was going to make a joke about, are you in any trouble, Brady? You know what I mean? Because normally my guests are either law enforcement or people that have come through transformations. So maybe our next interview, I'll be interviewing you and you'll be like, yeah, I got arrested. I was doing
yeah. You never
wheelies in the
know.
streets.
Yeah. No, I definitely did one little stunt here with the good weather
Mhm.
in Calgary. We found an abandoned building, and I rode up on top of it, and it all went without a hitch.
Mhm.
But yeah, it was definitely adds a little bit more of a heartthrob when there's a chance of your bike possibly being impounded and taken from you. So
Ouch. And that's a
yeah,
whole nother topic with risk tolerance awareness. Yeah, for
yeah, for
sure.
sure.
Well, excellent, Brady. Well, this was a really fun conversation. I really enjoyed this today, and the viewers are going to love it. So, where can they find you?
They can find me on pretty much all the social platforms at Brady Braps. I'm on Instagram, mostly active on Instagram. I am on TikTok too, though. And then I do have a fan page, Brady Braps, as well on Facebook.
Hmm.
And yeah, that's how you
And
find me.
I'll tag all of those in the videos as well, right?
Okay,
All right. And then did you want to give
awesome.
a shout out to your team, your support?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd say some of my biggest supporters come from Justin at Duff Moto.
Mhm.
He builds my bike and he makes sure everything's running tip top, and he makes it look really good as well, which is a bonus in the freestyle world. It's kind of like a show off sport. So
Of course.
when your bike looks really
Gotta
good,
have
it,
window
it
dressing.
helps you look good.
Mhm.
Yeah, 100%. And then I would also give a shout out to my good friend Alex at Hardcastle Clothing. He he's also rides freestyle, and we're on a very similar playing field. So we push and pull off each other a lot when we ride. And then not only that, but he supports me with his clothing brand,
Mm, mhm.
helps keeps me looking good.
Nice.
And
Excellent.
Andy has his own ramp and airbag setup. So, like I mentioned earlier, we're
Mhm.
booking our own shows, and I'm one of the first people that he thinks of when he needs to hire a guy. So,
Oh, right on.
big shout out to Alex as
Mhm.
well. And then a couple other quick ones would be CJR Suspension. He's out of Calgary, Charlie Johnson.
Mhm.
He's been a huge help with helping me get my suspension. It's probably the biggest factor we have on our bikes in freestyle is making sure your suspension is good. So Charlie takes care of that. And Fast Farm Garage is another one.
Mhm.
He lives about 25 minutes from me, and he lets me ride at his place. He's got a ramp and a landing, so he's been a huge part of my progression. Lets me ride whenever I want.
Mhm.
And I guess the other person I would thank is just Cody Matichuk himself for same thing, giving me a place to ride and always sharing his knowledge. And yeah, he's a very wise guy, and he helps me a lot when it comes to mindset and
Mhm.
preparation. So yeah, I definitely like to thank all those guys.
Yeah, right on. Are you getting fitted for a squirrel suit anytime soon?
No, not quite.
No.
I would start with some skydiving
Yeah.
maybe, but it's not quite in the works
Yeah,
yet.
I don't blame you. I like my feet on the ground too. It's all good. Awesome, Brady.
Yeah,
Okay, well, I thank you so much for your time today. This was a interesting conversation. I really enjoyed it, and hopefully I can have you on again sometime.
it was great. Yeah, thank you for having me, and
Yeah,
I had a
absolutely.
great time as well.
All right.